hard to have a conversation with anyone, let alone somebody in Silicon Valley these days, that doesn't find its way to the topic of AI. First, more broadly at a macro level, what are your thoughts? What's your POV on the role of AI?
I don't think a day goes by where we don't have some kind of discussion about it here. And it's got a ton of promise. I think the promise right now exceeds actual. And I think that's something we all, particularly in Silicon Valley, but elsewhere, need to work on. What's the opportunity? What's the ethics around it? How do we think about it? I also want to make sure that it doesn't fall by the wayside like we've seen almost yearly. And I said this on my podcast, but we have had almost a yearly occurrence in marketing, starting with VR, AR, going to the metaverse, going to NFTs. And now I think AI was the fourth in that line. I might be missing one, but there's the shiny object, right? Of boom, 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 boom. It's got to be the only thing you should focus on. And almost yearly, they kind of churn out. I don't think this one will, but I do think we need to be cautious and work on this the right way. Like when I have people approach me, like, this is definitely an AI-based program. It's really machine learning. Like that's not the promise of AI. Machine learning's been around for 5, 10, 15 years, right? So I think we've got to be clear about what AI can do. Now, you're talking about the potential within marketing. I think there's a real opportunity around creatives. What if we were able to make large-scale campaigns personalized to you in 24 hours? That would be interesting. Like utilizing data we know about you, we are able to create something only for you and serve it to you specifically. That's really interesting because the agility to that we don't really have in the world right now. That's fascinating, and I hope we can get there. I do think there's a lot of work to be done on AI. And to answer your question, we talk about it every day. I think it's discussed probably in the hallways of every Silicon Valley brand every day. I think there's a lot of work to be done still.
You think it'll be a net positive or a net negative on society?
I think it's going to end up being a net positive. I think the idea of the robots taking over has been out in movies and other culture for quite some time. I'm not sure I necessarily see it happening here with AI because I do think there'll be ethics structures in place. I think there's inherent biases that are a problem though. Like we're seeing that pop up, and that's real problematic because we're seeing this in media right now. As soon as you lose the trust of the customer, you're done. And so AI goes that way, and it's like, oh, it's leaning me this way, or I don't like that brand, or this thing's telling me something, and they blame AI or blame the brand for that. We're going to be moving on to the fifth in the line of shiny objects for marketers, right? We've got to make sure we solve that.
Do you think there's a use case in sports and entertainment on the horizon or something near term where we start to see it, or the average fan, I should say, starts to see it integrated into sports?
The content campaign work is going to be AI driven. And I think that's going to be really interesting so that you could be on a general sports site or on a sports digital journey, wherever you land, and have your favorite players, your favorite teams, your favorite subjects actually served you personally. You as Jeff Nelson served personally. And that to me, like that's not just sports, that's kind of broadly. That's what I was saying earlier. I think that's really interesting for sports marketers. And then the other part I think that's really interesting is the speed that we can serve to other markets. Now, a lot of the leagues here obviously have some international rights. Some do, some have more than others, but being able to serve them for partners and actually enact co-marketing campaigns with partners. I'm saying this somewhat self-servingly, but, and utilizing AI to do that would allow for much better business growth opportunities, I think.
How do our listeners know that this isn't an AI conversation?
Good question.
AI Jeff and AI John.